So welcome back to Talking Transformation, the podcast that focuses on the future of telecom in the era of cloud, software, and AI. My name is Robert Curran, consulting analyst with Appledore Research. Autonomous networks and AI continue to dominate talk about the future of telecom. Today's guest will add some extra color, if you'll pardon the pun, to that ongoing discussion. He's Olivier Simon, who heads up data and AI initiatives for Orange. In his long career there, he's been involved in a wide range of pioneering work, including in Open RAN, but now AI, autonomous networks, and digital twins. Orange is a very visible, well-known name, but just for some context about the business, Orange has about 300 million customers across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. It operates in a total of 26 countries and has revenues of around 40 billion euros. It was one of the founding members of the ORAN Alliance, and as a signatory to the TM Forum's Autonomous Networks Manifesto, it's been very public about its commitment to autonomous networks, with a target of achieving level 4 AN, that's closed loop automation, self-healing, anytime around now. Let's see how that's going. Olivier, welcome to Talking Transformation.
Hi, Robert. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Good to see you. Good to see you. You've been at Orange for quite a long time. So perhaps for listeners who don't know you outside of Orange, could you briefly describe your current role?
Yeah, correct. Actually, I've been with Orange for more than 20 years now.
Wow.
And now I'm in charge of what we call the network domain in data and AI. So basically, our role as a group is to work with the countries. The countries are somehow our customers, and we are bringing to them some data and AI solution for, let's say, improving the network operation or the network investment, for instance. So basically, we are building them in-house, or we're working with partners, and we bring to the countries such solutions.
Okay, excellent. So very much a group-wide role. You must see a lot of different contexts around the world. That's excellent. One of the questions that I think we often have about autonomous networks is understanding how do they link to business objectives. I mean, particularly in the mobile industry, we're used to things having a direct customer impact. But I'm wondering, in your context, what are the specific business goals or targets that autonomous networks as a program is supporting?
Yeah, maybe I can just take a little bit of altitude here and describe, the domains where we use AI, data and AI, I would say, in managing the network. The first domain is not related to network operation, but it's super important as well. It's about network investment. And I think it was the first domain really to emerge where data-driven management can create a lot of value. And just to give you an example, if you have 100 millions to spend on your mobile network, then the key question is, where should I build new site? Where should I add some capacity? Where should I upgrade with new technologies and so on? And it used to be a very manual task, and more we are using data-driven approach just to understand how the population evolves, where is the value, where we should deploy new coverage and so on, in a way that you can measure really the gains of choosing A versus B. So I think this is a quite mature part of what we're using AI in the network. A second relatively mature area is network optimization. You have, especially for the radio access network, as you know, a radio access network has thousands of parameters, and you always seek, the best trade-off between quality, between energy consumption, between the capex that you put. In one word, you want to make the most of your network with these parameter settings. And it used to be also relatively manual, and more now we can use data and AI to find, the best set of parameters, not in a general way, but for a specific place. If you take a cell, for instance, that has a lot of mobility with some train passing by or a lot of roads and so on, it's obvious that the best parameter setting is not the same as an area that is super crowded with low mobility. So this is the second area where we are using AI and we are developing quite a lot. The third is incident management in general. And here, what you want to do is to help network operation centers, for instance, to detect incident, to find the root cause of this incident, potentially to recommend the right remediation. Either you have to restart an equipment or you have to send an intervention team to change, I don't know, a board or anything. And here again, it's progressing quite a lot with AI. We, of course, we have a lot of to work about our data before doing AI. But you can optimize really for instance, the time to repair. You can optimize also the time to detect incident and so on. And so this is what we're doing. And the last area I would say where we're using AI for operation is field services.
Okay.
And it's very important because it's a very costly area, especially to help technician with retrieving documentation, with understanding what exactly they should do on the site to help them to make an optimized route if they have
Mm.
several intervention to do. So this kind of thing that has also started quite recently,
Yeah.
especially with large language model and generative AI. It's a field that is very rich, and I'm expecting that in the coming 2-3 years, we will get some very high, let's
Mm.
say, value
Mm.
creation in this specific area.
Yeah, yeah, very, very interesting. So that's really right across the whole network life cycle, right? The way
Yeah,
from
correct.
planning, investment through to
Correct.
over
I
delivery.
think in some time, there will be no part of the network life cycle
Mm.
that will be completely without data and AI. It's really
Yeah,
getting everywhere.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's. I guess we see some of the same thing. I mean, it begs a question about your strategy and given you're active in all of these areas at the same time. What are the key principles as you've looked at exploring the use of AI? What are the key principles in the strategy you have, and how do you make this a coherent program rather than just a lot of tactical experiments?
Well, maybe we should talk also about the relation between vendor and operators for this key principle, because actually AI is a revolution for operator, it's
Mm.
for sure, but it's also a revolution for vendors.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at how generally the network progress, you see that there are some items that are really part of I would say the vendor's scope, especially for the low layers. For instance, it could be valid for any type of it could be radio access network, it would be fixed access network, it would be transport
Mm.
network, and so on. You always have these low layers, and the performance of low layer is super important. And usually on this side, you have the network vendors that are working a lot, to get additional percentage in terms of
Sure.
throughput, in terms of decreasing latency, and so on. So this is, I would say, a first area, and we are super happy as operator, obviously, to take advantage of it and to set the right requirement on this
Mm.
pure performance layer. And then you have another uh, part of the scope which is more related to network operation, and this is the domain of operators. And this is in this domain that I was describing, that we are optimizing the network operation center, that we are optimizing the intervention, and I mean, all this kind of scope. Sometimes it could be outsourced in the sense that some operator also delegate this part to vendors through a managed service provider. But I would say you have these two layers, and you need to find the right border in
Okay.
what the operator does and what the vendor
Okay.
does to make this optimization. I would say.
Mm. Mm. That's interesting. I mean, it's part of what we see in our research in talking with operators, talking with vendors as well, a recalibration, if you like, of the relationship
Yeah.
between not only how current companies work together, but also their choice of who they work with. Certainly, we've seen, particularly in areas like data, quite significant influence of companies like Google and AWS and so on, and Microsoft Azure to some extent in that space. So it's interesting to see that part of your strategy is also trying to figure out, where the boundary should be between the different conversations that you're having.
Yeah, correct. It's a very good point because the, I would say, dominating company or the most advanced company in terms of data and AI are more hyperscalers and
Yeah.
this type of company which were born with data and AI. Basically,
Mm,
they had no legacy, and on the other side, I would say the knowledge of how to operate a network, how to make the highest performance of the network, and so on, is more on the operator side and and let's say the traditional vendor side. So as Orange, we are trying to work with both world and to let's say understand what we can take with hyperscalers, what
mhm,
we can take with traditional network vendors such as Nokia, Ericsson, or
mm,
Huawei, and what we should do ourselves.
mm,
And this is pretty new because I would say 5 years ago, these two ecosystems were clearly different and kind
mm,
of separated. And now we see really Google, AWS, and so on, really interested with the network. On the other side, we see the traditional network vendors pushing quite a lot
mm,
for data ops, for AI ops, for
mm.
ML ops. They are talking also a lot of agents this last days.
Of course.
So you're really, I mean, it's a good point to say that the ecosystem is changing and the border between the two or the three are
Mm,
currently moving. I would not say that they are stable. It would be
yeah.
interesting in 3, 4, 5 years to see what the Ericsson of the world does, what the
Mm,
Google of the world does, what the operator does
mhm, yeah.
do. Sorry. So it's
Yeah.
I mean it's very exciting time where everything is being built.
Yeah. 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 No, certainly is. Certainly is. I just want to touch on one of the points you mentioned a moment ago about your work in field engineering and so on. I think one thing that operators are trying to do, certainly as we hear from them, is figure out what the ROI is for investment in autonomous networks and in AI, and to make sure that they're investing at the right level and seeing the right returns. I mean, do you have a sense of what proportion of overall OpEx is addressable by the sort of initiatives that you have going on today? I mean, there's lots of OpEx that can't be changed much. It's a function of network size and so on. But I mean, would you put a figure on that as a percentage point? How much can be impacted? What proportion of operating expense is impactable by AI initiatives? You have a feel for that?
Yeah, it's a difficult question because to be honest, you don't know how far AI will go in terms of improving the efficiency of the stuff and so on.
Mm,
What I always advise is first to look at where are the highest cost pocket. And
okay.
field services for a group like Orange, it's more than 2 billion
Right.
of euro every year. So you can, I mean, even though you make some project and you gain 2, 3, 4%, when it's
Mm,
on big money like this, you get already a good return of investment in terms of I mean it's already multi-billions or tens of
yeah.
multi-millions, sorry,
Yeah.
or tens of millions. So just to and there is no also one field services. It's one of the difficulty with field services because you have people working on the public network, for instance, the radio access network, or people working with B2B, or people going to households to lay down some fiber. So
Mhm,
all these, let's say, different type
mm,
of field services are actually different, and you get different gain, and also the maturity is different. But what we are doing is to be really pragmatic, to identify where we have the highest cost.
mm,
We're starting with that, and we are targeting I mean, initially always around 4-5% gain. And but with time, we are confident that you can go to double-digit gain,
Yeah.
like such as 10% in this area.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that's good to hear. Again, that pragmatic approach, as you say, don't start with what can the technology do. Start with where are the costs and what are we
Exactly.
spending time doing, and then see how the two match up. That makes a lot of sense. Would you highlight any of the initiatives you had that you've been particularly successful in from a network operations point of view? Where have you seen the most impact, particularly anything you've done at scale in terms of using AI to improve costs and improve service?
Yeah, for network operation, and especially for network operation centers, improvement, operating efficiency, we have started with anomaly detection. And
Okay.
it may seem strange for people who don't know in depth this area. Actually, the way it works historically is that these guys get some alarms from equipment for, I mean, anything that could happen. And one of the problem is an alarm is not an incident. You can have
Okay.
alarms for very normal stuff. For instance, if I'm calling and I'm entering in an area that is not covered, then you will get an alarm for a call drop, but it will be normal. I'm
Mm.
just leaving, the coverage area. And the reality is that the network operation centers have hundreds of thousands of alarms every day. And obviously there is not hundreds of thousands of incidents.
Mm.
So the first challenge was to say, okay, let's help them in this flow of alarm, in this KPI monitoring, to in real time identify where there is an incident happening. And for that, there are various AI techniques. Such, for instance, you can monitor the time series of the KPIs, and when the patterns start to be different from other, usually there is something happening. Or you can look at the alarms, but not one by one, to look at the group of alarms. And when there are specific group pattern also coming, then you say, okay, it's probably a fiber cut. So I detect it. And instead of having like 1 hour, to investigate the logs and so on, you can detect that there is an incident in 2-3 minutes. So I think this part was really successful, and you get a good return on investment, because actually you gain on both sides. You gain on the cost side, because you automate this detection, and so you reduce the load on your teams, but you also make some value in terms of network availability and network
Sure.
quality. So I think this part was really successful. Another that was interesting and that we are currently ramping up is the root cause analysis. So when you have started, when you have automated the detection of something happening, then the question after is what's happening and where is the fault. And this part is a little bit more complex than a grouping alarm or monitoring
Mm.
KPI. Usually need to build a representation of your network with a graph, and this graph helps to identify the connection between different equipment sending alarms. And there are some algorithms that say, okay, this is the equipment that is faulty, and you need to take a look at it. So
Mm.
I think these two areas were quite successful. And if I take the example of field services, where we also had some good return, a very good return of investment in, for instance, in France, with fiber cabinets.
Okay.
These fiber cabinets, you have hundreds of thousands in the whole country, and the operation is not always super easy, because you have many people, technicians, touching them and so on. And when simple application is computer vision, you just make a photo of the fiber cabinet, and then you're using computer vision and AI to identify where there is a wrong connection or a cable that does not go in the right place, and so
Mm.
on. And this has proven also to make very high return on investment, especially because this is very big. The number of operation is super high. It's, I think,
Yeah.
the typical place where we have the highest number of operation, And so it's another example of good return of investment.
Yeah, no, there's great examples. Good to hear progress in those, as you say, in those high value areas. I think you're venturing into another key topic, certainly in our research and what we've seen the industry talk about. It's the area of digital twins, which has been around for quite a long time. Telecom industry borrowed that from the industrial automation, Industry 4.0 world, and we were talking about it. I think as an idea maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but in the last 18 months, I think we've seen a lot more interest in digital twins, partly the result of the evolution and the revolution in Gen AI and some of the capabilities around that. But it's more nuanced than that. It seems to us there's maybe many different kinds of digital twins for many different uses in telecom operators. I just wanted to get your thoughts, how you see digital twins evolving, particularly in the context of AI. What is it one thing that a telco operator will have, or is it many different digital twins, or how do you think about digital twins?
Yeah, it's again a very good question. Why do we need digital twin? I think the root reason is that we still have siloed data as operator. And because the network is something that is very wide, very complex, and in the past, the only way you had to manage this complexity is to, I would say, cut the elephant into pieces. And so you had people working with the radio access network, people working with the FAN, people working with the IP network, and so on. And this was designed in a way that was pretty isolated. So all these domains have their own data, and the system is done in a way that you don't need too much of cross domain information. Yeah. Unfortunately, or not, I don't know. This is changing, and now we more and more have to make this end-to-end vision, and so this means that you need to consider all of this data in a single representation. I just give you an example for this incident. If there is a fiber that is cut, then you will have some alarms in the optical layer, in the IP layer, in the possibly the service layer that is using this fiber, for instance, a radio access network, and so on. And so if you cannot make this connection between the different domains, then you cannot really automate the stuff. So the network digital twin helps you to represent your different domain, but also to build the connection between these domains. And with this multi-domain approach, you can start really to automate and to make service impact analysis, for instance, when you're changing anything in the network and so on. So I think really in the telco domain, the digital twin will really expand because we don't have any better way to create this representation of the full network. So then, how do you do? Ideally, you would want, I would say, a single digital twin for everything to secure that you have no problem of borders and so on. In reality, the way it works is that you start with creating a smaller digital twin here, another there, and so on. But what you're doing at the same time is you make sure that you can connect them together. So I would say for this question about is it better to do many or to do a single, I would say ideally to do a single from scratch would be the best mean, but practically what you have to do is to do many because you have to progress step by step, but to make sure that your architecture can let's say manage these many digital twin more or less the same as it was a single one.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be a persistent challenge in telecom, is bringing information together. Even if you have managed to get data out of silos, then still bringing it into a coherent and available and accessible data set is another step beyond that as well. So yes, as ever, pragmatic approach from Orange. Olivier, I know we've made a lot of progress in the area of AI. I think it's a lot more understanding now. AI has been used in telecom for certainly at least 10 years in some form or another. back before it was trendy, essentially. But it's clear we still have a lot of work still to do. I mean, in terms of widespread adoption of AI and agents and so on, from your perspective and in your role, what do you think the industry needs, or what's the critical work that operators and vendors still have to do to move up that autonomous networks journey in particular to become kind of super automated, super intelligent as were networks and operations? What are the things we still have to do, the next big challenges we face?
I think there is a big challenge is that this AI technology progress is accelerating a lot. So on one side, it's a good news. But as you said, 10 years ago, we have started with predictive AI, with simple algorithm to, identify some patterns. We have added also computer vision, which is, let's say, a relatively small model. And for the last 3-4 years, it's accelerating a lot with generative AI. And it has started with large language model as such. But every 6 months, more or less, you have a new super interesting feature coming. So there was first what we call RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, where you can use the context of your network to let's say answer for the large language model to answer the question in a much more specific way. We added reasoning. We are now talking about MCP, agent to agent, agentic AI to automate some stuff. For instance, I was talking about a digital twin. Now you can use a large language model or an agent to be connected with your network digital twin, especially your graph representation of the network. And so you can combine, different steps with this large language model to really automate more and more end-to-end tasks that could be much more complex. So what I would advise in this area is to make sure that you can keep up to date, I would say, with the technology, and it's very demanding. You need to do a lot of training. You need to talk about a lot with partners and so on, because in 1 year, I would say in this domain currently, you have the equivalent of the number of innovation that you get in 3, 4, 5 years in the, let's say, traditional network area. So, I mean, it's a challenge as such to keep up to date and to make sure that your investment will be profitable in the long run and that you have not forgot, anything important in the new thing that are coming. So, I would advise to be pragmatic here again, because as it's moving super fast, then it's better to make like 6 months project and to make a new phase 6 months after, as opposed to build 3, 4, 5 years project that actually may become irrelevant, because in 2 years maybe you will have an innovation that makes you long tunnel, something that is really not pragmatic. So I mean, it goes fast. And so the answer when it goes fast is to make short cycle, I would say.
Sure. Yes. And keep running, do something rather than do nothing. And
Exactly.
don't wait for it all to be finished or perfect. I think that's another context here. Waiting for the version 2. By the time version 2's come around, the industry will have moved on to version 5, 6, 7 of any of these things. So yeah, it's definitely a different stage that we're in that telecom's not really been used to. We've tended to work on long cycles, and now we have seen very, very fast cycles of development and real incremental change.
It's really a culture change. Also, its impact. Standardization is super important in the telco domain. But now we have to look at where standardization is the best tool versus open source, for instance, because in the IT domain, standardization more or less is replaced by open source. And now we have this, mix, I would say, context with what is standardized, what is coming from open source, what is proprietary, because you don't need to standardize everything, or you don't need to open source everything. So I would say that the traditional way of working with a lot of standard equipment that you put together, that you validate, and that you put on the ground and so on, this way of working is changing in some area, and especially where data and AI is here and there. We have much more like IT type of
Yeah.
of working, and it's interesting because we will see how the connection between the TM forum, for instance, and the Linux Foundation will be done. We see for agent to agent, for instance, that there are some initiative on both sides. So all of that is moving, and it's super exciting.
Yeah. Olivier, thank you so much for your time today, your perspectives, your insights. Very helpful, very interesting. Good to hear that Orange is making progress. And I think that your last points there are very, very critical. We are at a time of change in our industry, and I think embracing that change feels like the right thing to do, to tap into the accumulated knowledge and experience from IT industry, from other industries as well, and to progress as quickly as we can towards a better future. But thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you, Robert. Bye.